Good morning, gardeners, and welcome to Friday, June 16th. My name is Catherine, and I created a show called Good Morning Gardeners, even though I can't grow green things because I am referring to gardening metaphorically. We are planting the seeds for a better tomorrow. We're starting our day by getting in the right mindset to cultivate a better life for ourselves, better communities, and a better world. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you would like to add Good Morning Gardeners to your morning routine. I do my best to wake you up with positive and mentally stimulating ideas, but sometimes I miss things. If you have something to add to the ideas I discuss, please chime in the comment section below. Today is the International Day of Family Remittances. Remittances, or cross-border person-to-person payments of relatively small value, serve as a vital lifeline to the developing world and connect migrants to their families financially. Through this observance, the United Nations aims to bring greater awareness of the impact that these contributions have on millions of households, but also on communities, countries, and entire regions. The day also calls upon governments, private sector entities, as well as the civil society and as well as civil society to find ways that can maximize the impact of remittances through individual and/or collective actions. So today is a summer Friday in mid-June. Where I live, the sun has been starting to come up at like 5:30 a.m. and not fully setting until like 11 p.m. That sounds like an exaggeration, but I swear it's not. This weekend, my family and I will be celebrating Father's Day and hopefully visiting a water park. I hope you can plan something fun to do this weekend too. Also, I hope you guys enjoyed yesterday's episode about ethical graphic design. It felt really good to talk about that topic because it's been on my mind for so long, but I've really struggled to find a useful way to talk about it. Well, today I actually want to talk about an adjacent topic, which is the relationship between economic competition and an abundance mindset. If you have ever heard the term abundance mindset, it was probably in the context of a self-help book, personal finance guru, or a guided meditation on wealth attraction. If you've never heard this term, the idea is that a person with an abundance mindset will believe that there is more than enough money, wealth, or other resources to go around, and that to get all that you want, whatever you want, all you have to do is reach out and take it. I have done my best to foster an abundance mindset since I first encountered the term several years ago, but I think one struggle that I have faced, and probably that many of us face with truly embracing an abundance mindset, is the reality all around us of economic competition. Because if it's really true that there is really more than enough to go around, why is it that individuals and companies need to compete in the marketplace? To illustrate exactly what I am referring to, I want to read a section to you from the first chapter of No BS Wealth Attraction in the New Economy by Dan Kennedy. I believe the message in this book is very typical of the abundance mindset that you see in other books with, self-help gurus and, even in wealth attraction guided meditations, things like that. So Dan Kennedy writes, most people's worldview of wealth is as a zero-sum game. A big impediment to attraction of wealth is the idea that the amount of wealth floating around to be attracted is limited. If you believe it's limited, then you believe that each dollar you have came to you at someone else's expense, at your gain and another's loss. That makes your subconscious mind queasy. So it keeps your wealth attraction power turned down, never to full power. To let it operate at full power would be unfair and harmful to others. If you are a decent human being and you have this viewpoint, then you will always modulate your wealth attraction power. If too much starts pouring in too easily, guilt is produced as if it were insulin being produced by the pancreas after pigging out on a whole pizza. You can't help it. Your wealth magnetism will be turned down for you. Think about the words fair share. They are powerful, dangerous words. As an ethical, moral person, you probably think, hey, I don't want more than my fair share, but that reveals belief that wealth is limited. If you believe wealth is unlimited, there's no such thing as a share of it. Everybody's share is unlimited. There's nothing to have a share of. There's only unlimited. Your fair share is all you can possibly attract, as is anybody and everybody else's. In business, there's a similar idea. Market share. But again, that presumes a finite, limited market instead of an infinitely expandable market. In the new economy, market share is one of the most antiquated of concepts. Boundaries are broken. Even the smallest of businesses can be global in reach, thanks largely to the internet. Consumers have access to a multiplied and multiplying range of choices, so classic brand loyalty has been replaced by search for and expectation of the thing that is precisely perfectly appropriate. The market for all manner of goods and services is greater than ever before, yet the fragmentation of the market itself is greater and more complex than ever before. The attraction of wealth in this environment has little to do with somehow locking up a limited portion of a limited market, and everything to do with directly connecting with individuals and meeting their needs and interests. When you think in terms of being in the business of creatively meeting the needs and interests of individuals, it's obvious that the size of the market available to you is limited only by your own creativity and initiative. Further, that whatever connection you create and accomplish has no relationship to what anyone else does, whether a lot or a little. Clinging to old ideas of limitation blocks access to new opportunity. So, on its face, I like that section. It's motivating, it's inspiring, and it generally passes the sniff test, and I like that perspective. But in this chapter, which is titled No Guilt, Dan Kennedy goes on to explain why you should never, ever feel guilty for selling someone anything, especially if you think they can't afford what you're selling, which of course is none of your business. He tells the story of a fire alarm salesman who doesn't sell a $2,000 fire alarm system to a family because he can clearly see that they are living in poverty and he feels guilty for charging them such a large amount of money. So Dan Kennedy writes, if you were that fire alarm salesman who deliberately threw the sale, how would you feel about not exerting your best efforts if you turned on the TV news that next night and saw that family's house burned to the ground and they had died in the fire? Oops. There's something else to get clear about the people who are without money, that you perceive to be disadvantaged for one reason or another, and you question whether you should sell something regardless of whether you get any of their money or not. They are going to be without money next week too. The reason they're without money has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with your existence, what you sell or fail to sell, nor does it have to do with the way money works in the real world. It has to do with them. And whether you take it, somebody else takes it, the liquor store takes it, the church takes it, whoever takes it, I promise you somebody's getting it. Because if they're without money now, they're going to be without money again. And most of them are going to be without money permanently because they never gain or act on an understanding of how money works. I know that sounds harsh, and you may not be a face-to-face salesperson and never need to sit across the desk or table from someone you think can't afford it and sell to them anyway. But the truth about this particular situation is the bigger truth about the entire world of money and wealth. That truth is whatever amount you get has nothing to do with how much or how little anyone else has, ever. If you want your wealth attraction glowing and functioning at full power, you can't have any queasiness. You can't have any reluctance. You can't have any inhibition. You can't ever pull a punch. In the bigger sense, you have to understand that whatever financial position anyone you know is in, anyone you do business with is in, anyone, period, is in, it has nothing to do with you. In the biggest sense, you have to understand that whatever the state of the economic affairs in the world, it has nothing to do with how much wealth you accumulate. Your wealth is addition for you, but subtraction for no one. So I think everything Dan Kennedy writes there is technically a logical extension of the abundance mindset. But the reason that logic sometimes fails us is because it fails to account for external factors that exist outside the logical chain. In the fire alarm system example, the salesman had theoretically a large number of ways that he could have acted. Yet Dan Kennedy makes it seem as though the choice was binary: sell the fire alarm system or don't sell the fire alarm system. But actually, the salesman had before him an abundance of choices that he could have made. Yet Dan Kennedy restricts him to the limited binary choices of sell or don't sell. The salesman could have asked the family if they had enough food, if they needed help finding financial assistance. He could have offered the system at a steep discount or offered a payment plan. Maybe he could have even offered one of the parents the opportunity to apply to work with or for him. So since the salesman had this abundance of choices that he could have made, and yet Dan Kennedy restricts him to two choices, it almost seems as though Dan Kennedy isn't quite in the abundance mindset. And let's go back to the last sentence I read there. Your wealth is addition for you, but subtraction for no one. Now, that's technically true, but considering the larger context of our world and how wealth inequality has been on the rise year after year, and the world's billionaires just get richer and richer while an estimated 828 million still live with food insecurity, this argument starts to seem like it could be used as an excuse for selfish, greedy, and or power-hungry people to possibly hoard their resources as a way to bolster their own egos. Of course, I don't know the mindset of any billionaire or super rich person since I am not one, but I do think that at best, Dan Kennedy's perspective is a little narrow-minded, and at worst, it's being used as a justification to stand by and do nothing while millions suffer. So while I don't think there is anything inherently wrong with an abundance mindset, I do feel that there is something inherently wrong with the system in which we are being asked to apply this mindset. So to illustrate my point and to shift into our feel-good moment, I want to read to you from Team Human by Douglas Rushkoff. This is my newest book, which I have just started, and I am really loving it so far. So Douglas writes, nature is a collaborative act. If humans are the most evolved species, it is only because we have developed the most advanced ways of working and playing together. We've been conditioned to believe in the myth that evolution is about competition, the survival of the fittest. In this view, each creature struggles against all the others for scarce resources. Only the strongest ones survive to pass on their superior genes, while the weak deserve to lose and die out. But evolution is every bit as much about cooperation as competition. Our very cells are the result of an alliance of Our very cells are the result of an alliance billions of years ago between mitochondria and their hosts. Individuals and species flourish by evolving ways of supporting mutual survival. A bird develops a beak, which lets it feed on some part of a plant that other birds can't reach. This introduces diversity into the population's diet, reducing the strain on a particular food supply and leading to more for all. What of the poor plant, you ask? The birds, much like the bees, are helping the plant by spreading its seeds after eating its fruit. Survival of the fittest is a convenient way to justify the cutthroat ethos of a competitive marketplace, political landscape, and culture. But this perspective misconstrues the theories of Darwin as well as his successors. By viewing evolution through a strictly competitive lens, we miss the bigger story of our own social development and have trouble understanding humanity as one big interconnected team. The most successful of biology's creatures coexist in mutually beneficial ecosystems. It's hard for us to recognize such widespread cooperation. We tend to look at life forms as isolated from one another. A tree is a tree, and a cow is a cow. But a tree is not a singular tree at all. It's the tip of a forest. Pull back far enough to see the whole, and one tree's struggle for survival merges with the more relevant story of its role in sustaining the larger system. We also tend to miss nature's interconnections because they happen subtly beneath the surface. We can't readily see or hear the way trees communicate. For instance, there is an invisible landscape of mushrooms and other fungi connecting the root systems of trees in a healthy forest. The underground network allows the trees to interact with one another and even exchange resources. In the summer, shorter evergreens are shaded by the canopies of taller trees. Incapable of reaching the light and photosynthesizing, they call through the fungus for the sun-drenched nutrients they need. The taller trees have plenty to spare and send it to their shaded peers. The taller trees lose their leaves in the winter and themselves become incapable of photosynthesizing. At that point, the evergreens, now exposed to the sun, send their extra nutrients to their leafless community members. For their part, the underground fungi charge a small service fee, taking the nutrients they need in return for facilitating the exchange. So the story we are taught in school about how trees of the forest compete to reach the sunlight isn't really true. They collaborate to reach the sunlight by varying their strategies and sharing the fruits of their labor. Trees protect one another as well. When the leaves of acacia trees come in contact with the saliva of a giraffe, they release a warning chemical into the air, triggering nearby acacias to release repellents specific to giraffes. Evolution has raised them to behave as if they were part of the same self-preserving being. Evolution may have less to do with rising above one's peers than learning to get along with more of them. We used to believe that human beings developed larger brains than chimpanzees in order to do better spatial mapping of our environment, or to make more advanced tools and weapons. From a simplistic survival of the fittest perspective, this makes sense. Primates with better tools and mental maps would hunt and fight better too. But it turns out there are only slight genetic variations between hominids and chimpanzees, and they relate almost exclusively to the number of neurons that our brain are allowed to make. It's not a qualitative difference, but a quantitative one. The most direct benefit of more neurons and connections in our brains is an increase in the size of the social networks we can form. Complicated brains make for complex societies. The more advanced the primate, the bigger its social groups. That's the easiest and most accurate way to understand evolution's trajectory and the relationship of humans to it. Even if we don't agree that social organization is evolution's master plan, we must accept that it is, at the very least, a large part of what makes us human. So if you found this topic interesting or have anything to add to what I've shared here today, please leave your ideas in the comments section below. But for our focus moment today, I want to zoom out from this topic a little bit because I think at the heart of what I have shared with you today is the problem, or at least what I believe is a problem, that we are all being forced to live in an environment that is incompatible with our human nature. And while, yes, societies can be remade and improved and remade again, that process involves a lot of work, a lot of time, and frankly, a lot of risk. And I think it's actually possible for this kind of problem to be solved largely on the individual level, or at least for a lot of progress to be made on the individual level. Because just like your life is made up of single moments over a long period of time, Societies are made up of individual people in large numbers. And I think that as a species, we can make progress in cutting back on maladaptive or incompatible environments by learning to tune into our intuition and trusting ourselves to know what is right for each of us. So for our focus moment today, I want you to consider your environment, whatever that means to you. Your home, your neighborhood, your car, your office, your garden, whatever you want to consider. And notice which environments feel right. The more you can develop your intuition about what is right for you, the easier it will be for you to tune into your intuition to realize what is not right for you. I hope you found this helpful, and I hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend. I will speak with you again on Monday.